Okay, so you know how every business owner dreams of taking their company to the next level, turning it into something really big and impactful? Well, today we're diving into the nitty-gritty of scaling up.
And it really is a whole different ballgame, isn't it? I mean, it's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter, more strategically.
Exactly, and the numbers really paint a stark picture. We're talking only 4% of businesses ever scale past 10 employees. 4%. That's like 1 in 25.
Yeah, that's a pretty daunting statistic, and it's straight from Kevin Brent's book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System, which we're diving into today.
So what gives? What's the deal with this 4% problem? Why is breaking through that barrier such a challenge?
Well, many businesses, they sort of hit a wall because they haven't laid the groundwork for that kind of growth. The systems, the team, the structure, they just haven't caught up with the ambition.
It's like they've built a solid little rowboat, but then they try to sail it across the Atlantic. You need a bigger boat, so to speak.
Exactly. And Brent does a fantastic job of breaking down the challenges of scaling into four key areas. He calls them the four fundamentals: strategy, people, execution, and cash.
These are the pillars, the foundations for any business that wants to play in the big leagues.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that the challenges within these four areas, they kind of shift as your business starts to grow.
Oh, I see. So it's not like you solve one problem and move on to the next. It's more like the problems evolve alongside your business.
Exactly. So take cash flow, for example. For a small business owner just starting out, that's often the biggest headache, right? Making payroll, paying suppliers, just keeping the lights on.
Right. It's hand to mouth, very immediate.
But then, as that business begins to scale, that cash flow challenge doesn't just disappear. It morphs. Now you're not just managing existing cash, you're managing growth. Maybe you need outside investment, you're making bigger decisions about pricing and spending. The stakes get a lot higher.
The decisions have a much bigger impact, that's for sure. And I imagine the whole people aspect of the business, that probably becomes a whole lot more complex as you scale too.
Absolutely. You know, in the early days, you might be a one-man or one-woman show, wearing all the hats. But as you grow, delegation becomes essential. You need to build a team, and not just any team, but one that's aligned with your vision and equipped to handle the increasing responsibility.
And this is where Brent brings up the idea of the owner's trap, right? Where the very things that made you successful early on can actually hold you back as you try to scale.
Exactly. So many entrepreneurs are incredibly passionate and skilled at what they do. They have this mindset of, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
I can definitely relate to that. But I'm guessing that approach only gets you so far, right?
Right. Because as your business grows, that mindset can become a bottleneck. You end up being the one thing that's holding the whole operation back. You become, as the saying goes, a bottleneck in an hourglass.
So the key is knowing when to loosen the grip, to start delegating and empowering your team to make decisions and take ownership. Otherwise, you just end up with a really demanding job instead of a truly scalable business.
Precisely. And that's where Brent's ESIS framework comes in. It's all about giving you the tools and strategies to break free from that owner's trap and build a business that can thrive without you having to micromanage every single detail.
So let's unpack this ESIS framework a bit. What are the core components that Brent highlights as essential for breaking free from that owner's trap and achieving sustainable growth? So we're talking about escaping the owner's trap and actually building a business that has the legs to scale. This ESIS framework, that's the golden ticket, right? Where does it all start?
Well, Brent breaks down ESIS into four key elements: leadership, value, vision, and plan. And he really kicks things off by emphasizing that leadership, especially in the context of scaling up. It's about so much more than just being the boss.
Right. It's about inspiring your team to achieve something bigger, not just barking orders.
Exactly. He dives deep into this idea of self-awareness as a fundamental leadership skill. You have to know your strengths, be honest about your weaknesses, and always be striving to improve.
It's that continuous improvement mindset. You can't expect your business to scale if you're not willing to scale yourself.
Exactly. And Brent actually uses a really interesting example to illustrate this point. He talks about a submarine captain, David Marquet, who completely transformed the performance of his crew.
A submarine captain. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. How does that tie into building a scalable business?
Well, Marquet realized that in the high-pressure, constantly changing environment of a submarine, the traditional top-down command and control style of leadership, it just wasn't effective.
Too much room for error, I imagine. One wrong command could have disastrous consequences.
Exactly. So he decided to completely flip the script. He focused on empowering his crew, giving them the tools and the trust to make critical decisions on their own.
Instead of just telling them what to do, he taught them how to think for themselves.
Exactly. He shifted the entire culture from follow my orders to take ownership, be proactive, and be accountable. And the results were incredible. Not only did the submarine's performance improve dramatically, but the crew became much more engaged.
So it's about creating a culture of leaders, not just followers. I can see how that would be so powerful, especially as a business starts to grow and becomes more complex.
Absolutely. And that kind of naturally leads us into the next element of ESIS value. Because a truly valuable business, it can't be overly reliant on any one person, even the owner.
It needs to be able to run smoothly, even if you're not there to steer the ship every second of the day.
Exactly. Brent used this great analogy of a Switzerland structure. You know how Switzerland is this neutral country, very stable, not overly dependent on any one trading partner.
I like that. Diversification is key, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But how do you actually apply that to a business?
Well, think about your own business. Are you overly reliant on a single client, a single supplier, maybe even a star employee? Brent encourages businesses to identify those dependencies and find ways to spread the risk. Develop multiple revenue streams. Cultivate relationships with several suppliers.
Don't let your entire business hinge on one single point of failure.
Exactly. And, this is a big one, build a strong leadership team. That way, the business isn't solely reliant on you, the owner. You're not the only one who can keep things running smoothly.
You're building a more resilient, more valuable business. Okay, so we've talked about leadership, value, but none of that really matters without a clear sense of direction, which brings us to vision, the third element of ESIS.
Absolutely. And for Brent, vision is all about defining your company's core purpose and its core values.
Yeah.
This goes way beyond just having a catchy mission statement on the wall.
It's about understanding the why behind everything you do.
Right. He challenges business owners to really dig deep and ask themselves those tough questions. Why does my business exist? What problem are we solving in the world? What impact do we want to make?
Those are big questions, and I imagine coming up with clear, concise answers, that could be a real game changer for a business, especially as it grows and faces new challenges and opportunities.
Absolutely. Having that clearly defined core purpose, it acts as a North Star. It guides your decision-making. It helps you attract the right people. It resonates with your customers. Brent actually points to 3M as a great example of a company with a really powerful core purpose.
3M, the Post-it note people. What's so special about their core purpose?
Their core purpose is to solve unsolved problems innovatively.
It sounds simple, but when you think about it, it's incredibly powerful. It gives them this endless playing field for innovation.
Exactly. It keeps them constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But okay, so you have your core purpose, your guiding light. But how do you actually bring that vision to life? That's where the fourth element of ESIS comes into play. The plan.
So we're not just talking about setting some vague goals. We're talking about creating a detailed roadmap for achieving those big, hairy, audacious goals.
Right. And Brent emphasizes that a crucial part of that planning process is understanding your competitive advantage. What is it that you do better than anyone else? Who is your ideal customer? How are you going to reach them?
You've got to connect those dots between where you are now and where you want to be. And Brent, he provides some really useful frameworks to help you do just that, like that hedgehog concept and the Ansoff matrix. Can you kind of unpack those for us?
Yeah, definitely. So the hedgehog concept comes from Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, which, by the way, if you haven't read it, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the hedgehog concept, it's all about finding that sweet spot.
I like where this is going.
Right. It's where three things intersect. What you're deeply passionate about, what you can be the absolute best in the world at, and what drives your economic engine. Brent really encourages business owners to use this framework to hone in on their unique strengths. It's about finding that lane where you can truly dominate.
Instead of trying to be good at everything, you're exceptional at the things that matter most.
Exactly. And once you've identified your hedgehog, so to speak, then you can use a tool like the Ansoff matrix to map out your growth strategy.
Okay, so walk us through this Ansoff matrix. How does it work?
It's basically a way of looking at all the different avenues for growth. It lays out four main strategies. Market penetration, which is basically selling more of your existing products to your existing customers, maybe by ramping up your marketing efforts. Then there's product development, which is about creating new products or services that you can sell to your existing customer base.
So finding new ways to solve their problems, add more value.
Right. Then you have market development, which is all about taking your existing products and finding new markets for them. expanding geographically maybe or targeting new customer segments. And finally, there's diversification, which is the riskiest strategy, but it can also be the most rewarding. That's about creating new products for completely new markets.
It's like a choose-your-own-adventure for business growth. You've got your map. Now you have to decide which path to take. So to recap, we've got leadership, value, vision, and plan. These are the 4 cornerstones of Brent's ESIS framework. But this wouldn't be a deep dive if we didn't go a little deeper, right? He also talks about the importance of execution and people. Where do those fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, so those two, they're woven throughout the ESIS framework. For example, when we're talking about execution, Brent really emphasizes the importance of rhythm, of establishing a consistent cadence within the business. He calls it Rhythm 90.
Rhythm 90. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So it involves having these short daily huddles just to keep everyone on the same page, make sure things are moving forward. Then you've got your weekly team meetings to review progress, address any roadblocks, and then monthly strategic reviews to make sure everything's still aligned with the big picture goals.
It's about creating a system for accountability, a structure for communication that keeps everyone moving in the same direction. And as you scale up, I imagine that people piece of the puzzle, that probably becomes even more critical, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And Brent, he's a big believer that you need more than just a group of talented individuals. You need a team that functions like a well-oiled machine. People who are not only skilled at what they do, but who are also aligned with the company's core values, committed to the vision. And that's where tools like the 5 behaviors model can be incredibly helpful. It helps teams improve their communication, collaboration, problem solving. And DISC profiling is another great tool for understanding different personality types, communication styles, and how to leverage those differences to build a more effective team.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels heard, valued, and empowered to contribute their best work. But look, we can't talk about scaling up without addressing the elephant in the room. Cash. That green stuff that makes the world go around. How does Brent tackle this often daunting aspect of business growth?
Well, he's very upfront about the fact that cash flow is the lifeblood of any business.
Yeah.
And he's also quick to point out that profit doesn't always equal cash in the bank.
Right. You can be profitable on paper, but still struggle to make payroll.
Exactly. Yeah. So he really encourages business owners to get comfortable with their financials, understand how money flows through their business. He's a big proponent of the profit-first methodology, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
I am.
It's all about prioritizing profit, making it a non-negotiable expense. Instead of paying yourself last, you pay yourself and your profit first. It's a real game changer for a lot of businesses.
It's a mind shift, for sure, but it makes a lot of sense.
And then, of course, there are a lot of practical strategies for improving cash flow. Things like shortening that cash conversion cycle, the time it takes to turn inventory into cash, and eliminating those 8 wastes that can really drain your cash reserves.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the challenges of scaling up to Brent's ESIS framework, the importance of execution, building a strong team, and of course managing your cash flow like a hawk. If our listener could only take away one key insight from this deep dive, what would you want it to be?
That's a tough one. But I think if I had to choose, I'd say the most important takeaway is that scaling up, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. There's no magic bullet, no overnight solution. It's about consistently making small, incremental improvements in each of these key areas. And those small wins, compounded over time, they can lead to some pretty extraordinary results.
It's like they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the thought of scaling up, just remember, every journey starts with a single step. Find that one small change you can make today and start building your path to the top. And hey, if you need a little guidance along the way, be sure to check out Kevin Brent's book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. It's packed with even more insights and strategies to help you navigate the challenges of scaling up.